Hi YouTube, it's your boy Grassy TV. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're checking out my armor stacking hone defenses summoner shield lancer for season 6. Become an unbreakable fortress with the armor stacking hone defense summoner shield lancer, a build that excels in both defense and sustained offensive pressure. The setup revolves around hone defenses, stacking massive amounts of armor to mitigate damage while summoning miniature lancers to strike back at enemies. With the incredible survivability, auto scaling damage based on your armor, and a playstyle that really thrives during the heat of battle, this build is perfect for those who want to be an impenetrable tank and a relentless attacker. In this guide, we're going to cover the best skills, gear, and strategies to optimize your armor stacking, defensive summoner, shield lancer, ensuring that you outlast and overpower anything in your path. Stand strong, let the battlefield be yours. Now, quick disclaimer before we get started. This guide was created during the closed beta phase of Season 6 and is based on the content mechanics available at that time. Please note that certain features, balance changes, or other game elements may be updated or modified as the game progresses towards official release. The information presented here may not fully reflect the final version of the game, and some aspects could be subject to change. While I strive to provide the most accurate and effective build recommendations, future adjustments by the developers may impact the viability of certain strategies. Always refer to the official patch notes for the latest insights. All right, let's talk about some pros and cons. First, we have the auto bomber playstyle. You really just put up your shield wall, run into enemies. This is going to spawn your minions for you. And that's really the whole build. You have decent mobility at level 1, insane bossing potential. You also have 2 life passives and armor stacking for high physical damage reduction, which is really nice. And this build is really a great all-rounder. It's going to do great for bossing. It's going to be decent for clearing. It's overall just a really all-around good build. Um, some cons, however, you are going to have some slow early leveling. It's not going to feel the best. Even in high investment, you're going to have average clear. You can kind of see through my gameplay. Like we are very, very tanky. We can stand on just about any ground effect. We can take a hit. I have on this clip, I have I think 30,000 life. I mean, we're a very tanky boy. It's fantastic for hardcore, but our survivability is not the best. And arcane gear can be a bit expensive once you start getting into the higher, the higher in-game scaling. Things like Saint Aaron's ring and some of these angelics can get quite expensive, as most builds do, as you start pushing into the end game, because a lot of people are going to be looking for a lot of these same angelics, and it obviously increases the price, making these things expensive. So all right. If you are enjoying these build guides, so please consider supporting to the channel. I will have a link to my donation link in the description of the video. Thank you to everybody that supports. I appreciate you guys. Let's talk about the skill trees. First, at level 1, we're going to be putting all of our points into battle charge. Make sure you put some points into energy to sustain your mana. I like to use battle charge all the way until level 16. It's going to be a bit painful. I know. Just keep going. I promise you it gets better. Continue dumping our points in a battle charge and using this as our main skill. Try and find some sources of additional like additive physical damage or flat physical damage that will really help you in this stage. Once you're at level 16, you are going to respec. But one point of battle charge is going to continue to be your movement skill. Then you'll max out your shield wall. This is going to be your main damage skill. And Shield Wall is really nice because it has a pretty long duration, so managing your mana will be rather easy at this point, which is really convenient. I will also mention that if you're playing hardcore, this can be a little bit sketchy because you do have to run into enemies to do damage. And right around this level, you're going to be at some point you're gonna be pushing into Act 3, where you have to run into like bees and run into the big mummy guys that push bats out. It can be a little bit scary. Just a heads up. At level 30, we are going to start maxing our hone defenses. You can use this skill manually for auxiliary damage. Level 60, we'll put 1 point into Knight's Resilience, the rest into Last Stand. At level 80, we'll max our Last Stand. The rest will go into Shield Slam. And our final level 100 trees will look like this. We'll max Shield Wall, max Hone Defenses, max Last Stand, max Shield Slam, 1 point into Battle Charge, 1 point into Knight's Resilience, and the rest we'll put into Knight's Vigor. Now, if you're not familiar with sub skill trees, these were new in season 5. You're simply going to click on the plus sign in the top right of a skill. This is going to open up a new window that will look kind of like this here, right? This will allow you to spec your sub skill trees. You can gain 1 point for every 5 character levels for every skill that you have allocated. So you can start using this as you level up. You can also reset this tree for free anytime. So feel free to experiment. These are the trees that I have. First, we have the Summoner Hone Defenses. This tree does focus on maximum shields for the most procs and high defense damage scaling conversion for your summons. All right. It's actually not defense conversion anymore. It's armor damage conversions. Big difference there between armor and defense. So this is going to maximize just getting, all the minions here. This node right here is what's going to give us our armor conversion, right? And then I like to put a bunch of points here into the shields. This is going to make it so that whenever your shields actually do hit, you gain more stacks, which is really nice. For battle charge, this tree is going to focus on maximizing your charge range, your speed, and damage reduction. You also have the ability to stack enemies when charging through them, which is really nice. And shield wall. This is gonna be our shield wall tree. Honestly, this one doesn't matter too much. And excuse me, this node here is what's going to cause your shield wall whenever it hits enemies. It's going to gain additional stacks. If you really want to try and proc home defenses as much as possible, so gaining those stacks is really nice. This is just going to give us additional like orbital speed. I like to have the node that makes the shield wall spin around me like a big circle instead of it being like actually around me. I feel like I get a bit more range out of this one. You could opt out for this and go for a different augment if you would like to just run into enemies directly. This is up to you. For attributes, your skills early on can be quite expensive. So you want to put some points into energy until you can find some skill damage or some sustain, like mid on kill. After that, you'll follow a 50-50 split rule between intelligence and vitality. In this case, we also have armor stacking. So you get double synergies with home defenses, right? So you can get both increased damage from putting points in armor and putting points in intelligence. So be sure that whichever skill that you're using to get your damage, that you are putting the proper synergies in. So while you're leveling, it's honestly generally 2 points armor, 2 points vitality, enough points to feel comfortable in energy. And then once you get into the end game, you're going to dump all of your points into armor. Armor ends up being a higher damage synergy just because of the conversions, and on the skill itself is literally a higher synergy. So just something to note. All right, talking about gearing, this section is designed to give you workable suggestions on what gear to acquire at different stages of the game. You as a player need to look at your current gear and figure out what options make sense for you. Due to the addition of sub-skill trees, there will be item proc combos that aren't listed here, as they're honestly not discovered yet. It's really up to you to experiment. So our level 1 to 100 gearing, for most of it, you're going to be searching for rare and mythic items that match your character's damage type. So we're looking for arcane damage in this case. But you may come across some satanics that make sense to use. I cannot guarantee that you're going to drop any specific satanic, nor will you stop leveling to farm for any specific satanic. So my gear recommendations aren't going to include them. Recommendation. Rune words, however, are nearly guaranteed as the bases are very common, and you can obtain any rune from completing the Act 1 normal Nightmare and Hell quests, then using the Prospect Station to downgrade those runes to the ones that you need. This does not include the runes that you'll drop naturally playing the game. Be sure that you check the runes level requirement and the white bases level requirement to ensure that you meet both before making a rune word. The in-game journal can be a bit misleading on the minimum level requirements for starter rune words, so best check for that for yourself. So looking at weapons, here's generally the things that we're looking for on weapons. So things like skill damage, arcane skill damage, magic skill damage, summon damage also does work for us later on. You can get things like movement speed, faster cast rate, life of mana on kill, intelligence, armor, getting energy or mana on like rings and charms and that sort of thing. It's really, really nice to have. So kind of go through some of um these other rune word options. So Sky Song, Divinity, if you get lucky and find an early Vex rune, you can make a Divinity and a Mace, which is really, really solid. Otherwise, I would just run as a Sky Song, very cheap rune word. It's the spirit of Hero Siege. Offhands looking for these same affixes. For rune words, we can make a second Sky Song. This would be our offensive option. I recommend that you go a Divine Contemplation. Resistances have changed in Season 6. They are now, it's a bit harder to get resistances, so I would recommend going for a Divine Contemplation. We'll need a 3-socket shield for that. Helmets, again, looking for those same affixes. However, we could also make a Scholar. This will give us a skill, some physical damage reduction, a little bit of sustain. For chests, same same affixes here. A big one on chests you can get damage reduced by. This is actually a pretty strong affix early on. And then we have Shadow, which is our stealth of Hero Siege, essentially. This gives you a bunch of movement speed, faster cast rate, decent. Our best option here is Angle Oxawana. This gives you a ton of skills, arcane damage minus arcane enemy resistance, so you get some pen, faster cast rate, very strong as well. For gloves, just any of these affixes. For boots, again, any of these affixes, prioritize your movement speed, get as much movement speed early on as you can. You could also go for quick steps. These are going to give you the most amount of movement speed. So up to these have 93% movement speed on them. Ghost is your better option. However, you need a Malrune to make that. But it's going to give you two skills, some phasing, which is actually really, really nice to have on a shield that's early on. Also a very good option. For belts, looking for any of these affixes. Ring, same thing. Arcane related affixes. Aimless, same thing. Arcane related affixes. And charms, once again. Charms are underrated. People don't usually do their charms strictly early on. You can get your resistances, you can get skill damages, you can get life, you can get life percent. I've coming out of hell difficulty before had 10,000 life. Like getting to level 100, I had 10,000 life, and a lot of that's just due to charms. Obviously, I was vitality stacking as well. Another big one here: movement speed, enhanced defense is very underrated. All these are fantastic. You can also find armor, help you with a little bit of damage there. Looking at our budget gear, this section is designed to give you gear options as a fresh level 100 character. There's no best in slot gear at this point. Most of the items could really be swapped out with strong mythics. Item decisions revolve around how your character feels over direct power upgrades. If your character has a built-in teleport, which ours does not, but you have a low cast rate, choosing items that have a faster cast rate than others will make the build feel smoother. Later on, once we get, Side of the Gods, or you get some sort of teleport skill, having a faster cast rate will make the build feel way better than just getting more damage. So you could really swap out any of these budget items and make the build feel capable of completing Hell difficulty, begin pushing. That's really our goal here. We're trying to get through Hell 1 difficulty. That way we can unlock Satanic Stones and start farming out for gear to push with. But don't underestimate how strong your mythic items can really be. We have Sky Song, Divinity, and Dragon Knight's Flail. Dragon Knight's Flail is your basically poor man's divinities, and Sky Song is just a decent offensive option. Any of these will work just fine. Offhands, we have Sky Song, Divine Contemplations, what I recommend, Rift Eye, Gem Encrusted Tower. Any of this stuff is fantastic. You end up finding the Gem Encrusted Tower. This has a ton of resistances on it, up to 6 sockets. It's very clean, very nice. Helmets. Right now, you're probably using a Scholar. Pick any of these. They're all fantastic. Right, any of these helmets will serve you just fine. Same thing for chests. You're probably using either an Eagle Oxawana or a Shadow at this point. You may have a Satanic. However, any of these could be good options. Heaven's Might. There's actually Sheep Kings now that's farmable through Shiponia. That could be a really good option as well, but it's has a low drop rate. Any of these will be just fine. Gloves. All of these are just very starter Satanic or set items that you could put on. I recommend Wisdom Holes, but they're all fantastic. Mevises can roll arcane skills. For boots, quick steps is going to be your most movement speed. You do have a charge skill, which is nice, so you probably can move around fairly decent at this point. But I kind of recommend that you go with either quick steps or ghost. Quick steps, just again, just being able to walk around quickly is a good thing. And ghost being able to walk through enemies is also really strong early on. So either of these is fantastic. I wouldn't really recommend Grand Wizards or Wizard Boots, just because you don't get a lot of movement speed on them, and this character really needs it. So you can go Grand Wizards. They do have skills like these are okay, but I would recommend jumping in. For belts, any of these, pick any of them. They're all great. They all have different reasons why you would pick them. Commander Sash has res, PDR, skill. Nice Girl has the most skills. Any of these are fine. Rings, I recommend to go for the Coda Wedding Bands. This is going to give you the most movement speed. Just begin to, usually through Hell 1, you have more than enough damage. So just blasting through it quickly and starting the push, right, is more important than just getting more damage in a difficulty that you're already one-shotting things. So that's up to you. If you want more damage, you could go for Iron Ring or Prometheus, right? That's going to give you some faster cast rate. It's going to give you some Magifying. You could also run a Satanic Eye to get some resistances. You could go Absence of Constraint. That'll give you your arcane damage, and some of your damage will go to mana, which is really nice. You're already pretty tanky on this build, but getting some additional tankiness through mana conversion or Orb Energy Shield in this case would be really nice. So, as well as you can also just look for Mythic Rings that have plus skills on them. Amulets, pick any of these. They're all great. Dark Lord Sigil is what I recommend. If you want Magic Find, All Seeing Eye can give you 3 skills with a bunch of Magic Find. It's really strong as well. Charms, you're going to look for anything with skills. You can go, I mean, skills are a bit rare to find, but you can find skill or charms. There's resistances, all resistances, life percent, magic skill damage, enhanced defense, faster cast rate, movement speed, mana on kill, life on kill. All of those things are fantastic at on charms. There's also a couple of satanic charms that I'd recommend to get early on. They are going to be rather expensive, but it is worth saving up for these because they are very, very strong. Damon's Cage can get up to 3 skills with the 35 intelligence. That's another 35% magic skill damage. Very strong. Moonshard is now an SS tier, and I expect it's going to be a bit more expensive than it has been in the past. However, it is a very, very good early game buy. So I still wanted to show it here. As that way you're getting into your mind that you will need to get a Moonshard. For the mid game, in order to scale an arcane caster, there's a lot of things that you need to understand. Arcane skill damage. This is a direct multiplier on a skill's base damage. Same thing for magic skill damage. The magic skill damage that you get from intelligence. Both of these are added as arcane skill damage, right? So you're taking intelligence, magic skill damage, and int, and adding all those together, and then multiplying that by the base damage. You get base damage through sources of hard points and soft points. Soft points are basically points that are gained from items, and hard points are points that you put in yourself. So you can only get 20 hard points into a skill. The rest is soft points. From there, we also have things like summon damage, which falls into the same category as magic and arcane damage. So that gets added as well because we are technically using a summon. Now, things like plus summon skills do not affect us because the skill itself is not a summon skill, but because we are summoning summons, things like summon damage and increased summon attack speed do affect those boys. So we do want to look for sources of increased minion attack speed. This is a more damage multiplier for the minions, as there's very, very few sources in the game for increased minion attack speed. So these are very strong. You also want to look for faster cast rate. This isn't going to do anything particularly for your minions or really for you. Outside of whenever you get teleport, you'll be able to teleport around with having more faster cast rate will help with that. Now, monsters in Hero Siege also have resistances. In order to reduce them, you're going to need sources of minus enemy arcane resistance. This is why I was telling you to get a moon shard so early. It's very, very strong to be able to break through some of those resistances because some of these monsters have a lot of resistances. It can take a monster, for example, that has 1,000 resistance. If you are reducing it by 100%, it is now going to 0, right? It's a reduction, not a difference. So it's also just important to note that you cannot lower a monster's resistance below 0%. So just getting 100% pen is very strong, and it's something that you will be aiming to do in the mid game. You also have sources of arcane break. This is like a curse. Whenever you break a monster, they're going to take percent increased damage from whatever element break type you're using. So in this case, we have arcane break that we're applying to monsters. It's a 50% arcane break. They're now going to take 50% increased damage. And another big thing to talk about is extra damage. So after all of this happens, right? Our multipliers here, our pen, our pain break, all of this stuff happens. You also have a last stat of extra damage, and this multiplies all of this. Now, there are a couple of ways that we can get extra damage in this build. If you can bleed enemies, there's a way that you can use like a feral claw. You can use gladiator belt, violence. There are items that give you extra damage to bleeding enemies, which can be very, very strong. Generally speaking, whenever you have, say, say you have a billion single target, right? Getting additional like plus skills and getting additional, um, like minion attack speed. You probably have your resistances capped. There's just really not a lot more you can do here in terms of scaling your damage, like multiplying your damage. So we do this through extra damage, right? We multiply our already, you know, uh, multiply damage if that makes sense. So, one way that you can do this is actually through poison, right? You have a chance with shield. I don't know if it's shield wall or home defenses. One of those has it in its sub skill tree. You can inflict poison. I believe it's shield wall. And then you could run things like a tether of anguish belt, which would give you extra damage to poison enemies. Since your shield wall poisoned them, well, there you go. Now all your shit is going to get extra damage towards those monsters that are poisoned, which is very strong. So these are all really important mods for scaling a damage on an arcane caster. So we're going to talk about some gearing that we can do here in the mid game. For weapons, we're going to be looking for divinity or sovereignty. Both of these are fantastic. You're going to want to look for plus skill bases like magic skill damage, that sort of thing for the base to make the rune word on. For offhands, you're gonna want to get a Celestial's Authority. It just gives way too much minus enemy resistances. If you can kill Hell 5 Gabriel, you can try and go for a Gabriel's Unholy Oath. This is going to give you some summon damage, a ton of resistances, up to 6 skills, very strong as well. You do get +1 to summon Heretic. This is a Chain Lightning minion, be very strong for you. There's also Ancient Ages, so Sumi, Finland, Perkel. You can use either one of these as well. These are all fantastic, but most likely you're going to be stuck on Celestials for quite a while just because of the amount of pen that you get with it. This plus a Moon Shard basically caps your pen with 2 items. It's a very strong combo, really, for any Arcane caster. For helmets, if you can fire up in Gabriel, you'll want to go for a Dauntless Vision. This just has a ton of skills. You get up to 3 sockets on it. You can put runes or whatever in there for more resistances. You also get a ton of physical and magical damage reduction. It's just an overall really, really good helmet. However, your best damage option is probably going to be Delirium. This can get up to 8 skills, and then you can use you can find a +5 base. So you can get 13 skills on a helmet, which is absolutely stupid. But that's going to be your highest damage. Curse can be okay if you can roll an arcane version of it. Good luck with that. And then Harley Quinn's Veil is also a decent option. You do get a ton of physical damage reduction, magical damage reduction, resistances, magic fine up to 5 skills. This can be decent as well. For chests, we're most likely going to be looking for an Enigma, right? Because we don't have teleport. This is going to be just a free source of teleport. It only takes a jaw and a burr. Very easy to get, honestly. I try to find a plus skills base, but honestly, if you can't find a plus skills base, it doesn't even matter. Just make this on whatever base you can get. Just having teleport on the build is going to make it feel way better. Gem Kings can be a decent option as well. You'll want to put a bunch of pristine amethysts in it. The amethyst will turn it into an arcane version instead of it being this fire version that you're seeing here. So the arcane version will have things like cooldown recovery. You'll get 6 arcane skills. You'll get arcane skill damage, right? Really nice. Isarius is going to be your it's a really good hardcore option. It's honestly just a good option in general. You can get combat orders in your struck, 5 skills, a ton of physical damage and magic damage reduction, resistances. It's just overall a really good chest. As well as you get 40 armor. The armor actually double dips because we get damage from armor. So just really nice. Our best chest here is going to be St. Jupe's. It's just unparalleled in comparison. The amount of skills that you get on it. This proc here, this Commander's Valor is going to give our minions crit damage, and attack speed. Right? Excuse me. No, it gives it crit and crit damage. Right? But it's a very, very high amount. So now all of our minions are going to crit. Then you get up to 80% minion attack speed. You get pen, you get skill damage, you get resistances, and up to 6 off. It's crazy. This chest is absolutely broken for our summon boys. This is what you'll want to get. However, I imagine they're going to be quite expensive. For boots, ideally you're going to want to get Ether Walks, arcane skills. Good luck with that. Otherwise, you'll use Pearlescence. Is just to have a ton of resistances and Magic Find, right? You can also continue using things like Ninja Tabby. You could use your Ghost, right? And find a better base Ghost. Those would be fine. For belts, Rugal is very strong. You get a bunch of damage, you get tankiness, you get pen, right? Just everything about this is fantastic for us. You could also find a decent Sash of Eternal Hatred from Damien, right? You can, get arcane skills with maybe some pen on there, or just find some pen or whatever it may be, right? There's all sorts of different sashes that you can make that could work for the build. For rings, your boss rings have been moved to Inferno difficulty. So you can hate yourself and try and farm out a soul gem for a +3 Azazels, but Azazels has been nerfed in its drop rate. It's going to be harder to find one, and you're gonna want to get a +3 Azazels. You will not put a soul gem in a +2. So a +3 is going to be quite expensive, or you're going to have to get lucky and find one. So most likely you're gonna have to farm out just some decent skiller rings, right? And then use a recall band from Hell 5. Cool. There it is. From Hell 5 for cool in order to mirror that ring. You can also find Zephyrs. These can roll with Shield Lancer skills on them. So you'll get +3 from there. And then again, you can mirror that. Any of this could be option, but you're most likely going to have to get a ring. You're most likely going to have to use a cool ring to mirror your mythic. You can no longer star level, by the way. For amulets, any of these are fantastic. Most likely, you're going to want to go with Philosopher's Stone because you're going to need the resistances, but this is going to be a bit harder to get. Pendant can be okay if you have your Enigma to be able to teleport around with. This will make farming and teleporting around much faster. And then you can also find a decent roll to Rethiel's Fall from Uber Damien. Any of these will be just fine. Here's a list of a bunch of different charms that you're going to want to get at this point. You can get lucky on any of these. You can get elemental gems and a tablet or runes in there for all resistances. If you get lucky and find an Annie, a pumpkin, a Folgy, right? Any of these are great. You can also get Sobek's Fall. This is farmed from Amon Ra. This is fantastic for us, right? 3 skills, a shitload of summon damage. You will want to get one. And as well as the A bomb set, you're going to need the A bomb set. This will, for the most part, like the plus skills and stuff aren't going to affect us, but the things like summon attack speed, right? There's some there. You also get +1 A bomb. This is going to be the big tall boys, the abominations. They follow you around. Be really nice to have those just to get additional meat shields, as well as your minions will take, reduce damage and they'll be zoomy, right? They'll move around faster. Now, once we get to the end game, min-maxing a character, there's a lot of variables to consider, as well as people have different play styles and goals with their characters. Starting in season 6, Hero Siege will have a new item called the Satanic Crystal. When cubed with an item, it will either add a new affix or destroy your item. This takes min-maxing a character to a whole new level. As of right now, I do not have a possible list of corruptions, so my gearing recommendations aren't going to include them. This section will include a build that I use for in-game testing, but the build can be pushed even further with the new season 6 features or mythics that I was unable to obtain. So this in-game build is a result of my testing and refinement, and I can confidently vouch for its effectiveness. However, builds are always subject to personal preference, specific encounters, and evolving strategies. There may be more optimal variations depending on your playstyle, the zones that you're tackling, or the bosses that you're facing. So feel free to experiment and adapt. This guide serves as a strong foundation, but the best build is honestly the one that works for you. So here's a list of the gear that I'm using. As a side note, the footage that you're seeing is not from season 6. This is season 5 footage. Unfortunately, was not able to get season 6 footage for this video, which is a good thing, right? Because it just means that it's going to be even stronger going into season 6 because I don't have St. Jupes on, which is such a crucial part to this whole build, and I'm doing just fine. And here's a list of all that gear. I'm not going to talk about all of these too much. You're welcome to come check me out on Twitch at twitch.tv/TV. We can go through any of this information. Now, for a single target setup, I know there's a ton of gear here. There's a lot of fizz gear here, but this is what we're going to be using for proccing the extra damage to bleeding enemies. This is really, really strong later in the game, but it does get quite expensive to put all of this together. Now, for relics, here's our relic options. Most likely, you're going to drop Triforce for Grail just because you no longer get the $30 res. It's only 10 now, so it's kind of useless. These are the relics that I recommend, and then here's some additional utility options. For potions, here's a list of just different potions that you could use. Ghostly Potion will give you magic skill damage. Wizard Potion will enhance your cast rate. Almond Raw's Demise will make minions explode or enemies explode when you kill them. Elixir of Unwieldy Cognition will give you increased experience. This is now an SS tier. Witch's Potion is your oh shit life and mana button. A Golden Blade Mysterious Potion. This is now an SS tier Angelic Potion, but it does give you Magic Find and Gold Find. Empty Bottle of Vodka will give you plus skills. You definitely want one of those. Battle of Rad will give you movement speed and phasing. And then if you have a source of burn, we can get caffeinated coffee container, and this will give us increased damage to burning targets. For chest augments, the best in slot chest augment is either monstrosity or minion mastery. It really depends on your current level of gear. You're gonna have to test this one yourself. Now, my guess is that minion mastery at mid to high investment, and then monstrosity at low investment. The reason I think this is early on, you just don't have a ton of multipliers yet, right? You don't have a ton of source of magic skill damage. You're in slow, your magic skill damage is low, you're still getting gear. And putting on a monstrosity is such a high amount of magic skill damage. At level 7, it's 350%. That's a lot. So I feel like this is going to be really strong early on. However, once you start getting a lot of magic skill damage, you're going to start getting diminishing returns from it, and you're going to need other ways of multiplying your damage. And that would be done through minion mastery to get your minions attack speed so that you multiply that damage. Now, there is some reason that maybe you'll just stick with the minion mastery and not even use the monstrosity at all. You're probably going to have to run minion mastery on an enigma, because you're just not going to have it unless you get lucky on an early St. Jude's, right? So it can be a little bit rough early on, kind of deciding what direction you would go. I would probably make my enigma and run monstrosity, and then later on, once I get my St. Jude's, I would switch to minion mastery. But you could also just run minion mastery on your enigma. That would be just fine. Survivor Shield's a decent option if you're in hardcore, and Spellslinger. This will give you some cast rate. If you just feel like you want to move around a bit faster and would like to get some additional magic skill damage, you could go Spellslinger. But ultimately, you're gonna want to go Monstrosity or Minion Mastery. For hero levels, I do have a guide on how to spec your hero level tree. I will have that in the description of the video. This tree generally provides utility over character power, so it's very situational. This video will describe the best paths to take based on your character situation. Also, I will have a link to all of the glyphs currently, because glyphs do not offer any player power. They're all utility. So their selections are really just preference based, depending on the content that you just want to engage with. Again, a link to this is in the description. Here is an example Merc. Currently in season 5, Mercs are only magic find ore bots, really. So we just are looking to stack as much magic find on them as we can. Here is a snippet of a Night Merc skill tree. We basically have damage reduction, life per hit, life regeneration, some armor. Mainly what we're looking for. Now, for weapons, we have different levels of Magifying gear as well as Aurora's Might. This is a huge resistance aura. Keep in mind that in season 6, as of right now, Aurora's Might's rune word has been changed. It does now require a key rune. But honestly, I think it's the lowest of the high runes. It is the lowest of the high runes, so not hard to get a key rune, but it's just something to note that you will have to make that maybe a little bit, maybe in the Hell one, right? It's going to take you a bit longer to get into an Aurora's Might. But this is a good option just to get some resistances. I personally don't ever make this. I don't like my Merc dying and then me losing res because of it, especially if you play hardcore. This is a terrible idea. For chess, Oopies, Empires, Mental Plate, Mystic Allure, any of these are fine. You want to put Istrunes in any of this stuff. Same thing for weapons. You'll want to put and helmets. Same thing. Harley Quinn's crest, Harley Quinn's veil, the bucket. You want to put Istrunes in any of this. The bucket has now been moved to SS tier. It does have 5 sockets on it now. Harley Quinn also has some sockets on it now. Offhands, Den Glen, Den Glider in, Wall of Legion, Upcon Greed, Novice Tower, any of this stuff's perfectly fine. Throw Istrunes at any of it. Whatever you can do to give your minions as much, whatever you can do to give these items as much magic find, right? That's what you're looking to do for your mercenary. Now, for loot filters, to make highlighting items easy, I'll explain how to go over how to add a filter in less than 30 seconds. First, you'll press escape, go to options, gameplay, and loot filter. Your screen will look like this here. Then you're going to look on the right side. You'll see highlight presets. You'll select the arcane caster. This is going to make sure that you highlight items that make sense for arcane casters while you're leveling. And then on the left side here, you'll see your filter settings. You're simply just going to select the preset based on what difficulty that you're in. So if you're in normal, you'll click on normal. If you're in nightmare, you'll click on nightmare, and etc. Now, I am going to be making loot filters that I recommend you might want to use for leveling based on what archetype that you're playing. So I will have those in the description soon. I'm working on that video currently. Now, some additional helpful resources. If you're a new or returning player, I do have some, additional information teaching you some, leveling information, just some of the best strategies for the game itself, giving you basic understanding of how things work in Hero Siege. So, first, if you are a brand new player, I do have an Ultimate Beginner's Guide. This is a 2.5 hour video that I made for season 5. It's still very, very relevant. It has as much information from logging into the game to what angelic keys do. So I do have timestamps to everything for that video. Link is in the description. Before you get started in Hero Siege, make sure you equip your own companion. Everybody gets one for free. Set up your highlight filter, configure your controls. Here's a snippet of mine. I also suggest that you change your minimap hotkey to tab. This will make the minimap permanent, like D2 PoE. Swap your FPS to 60. Trust me, even if you have a beefy PC, you're gonna want to do this. Your performance improvement is massive. And then I show you how to assign a skill to your bar. You just click on this right click here, and then you can select your skill. Now, whenever you're leveling, there's a difference between additive damage and skill damage. Additive damage does not work for spells. Only skill damage works for spells. You're going to want to look for sources of plus arcane skill damage, not additive skill damage. Okay? Two different things. Additive damage works for attacks, skill damage works for skills or spells. While you're leveling, there are some zones that you might want to farm just to get some additional experience or look for gear upgrades if you're having a hard time finding, gear upgrades. So here's just a snippet of different places that I recommend that you would go for normal. Here's some for nightmare. Now, it's also important to note that the ones in normal you could use for nightmare or for hell, right? This is just generally like the different places that people will farm out while they're leveling. Me personally, I always go to rat den in every difficulty. For quests, there are no required quests in Hero Siege. But there are some that'll give you some supplies for early gearing. Act 1 normal, Act 1 nightmare, Act 1 hell. Make sure you do all of those quests. In Act 1 nightmare and Act 1 hell, it's only one quest. So it's easy as hell to do to get some free runes up to Vex. And then in Act 1 normal, you do get a 15% movement speed charm and a 40% movement speed potion before completing those quests. They don't take too much time. It'll maybe take you an extra 20 minutes of your Act 1, right? And that'll give you a ton of extra movement speed for level with. We did talk about how to scale damage in the mid game section. If you need a refresher on that, I recommend checking out that part of the video. Here's just kind of a snippet of all that information if you would like to read through it yourself. Season 6 is scheduled to start on March 14th. I do have a link to the official Season 6 patch notes. Those are still being updated as they are making changes currently. You are welcome to check out those patch notes and see what's going on for Season 6. Ton of information there. I also have a link to the official Hero Siege wiki if you're not familiar with it. This is managed by a couple of mods and players in the Hero Siege community. They keep this updated as good as they can. There's a ton of information in here as well. Now, once you hit level 100, I do have a full early game progression tips and tricks video. This will just help you if you're early game struggling, your early game strategies kind of help you push through Hell 1 difficulty and get farming and getting up to Hell 5 essentially. So I have a full video and written guide on things that you can do at level 100 to help you push through the game. Also, there is a Hero Siege helper. This is a really cool website. Be sure you bookmark this. This just has a ton of information. I do have a full video talking about what this website can do. So be sure you check that out. As well as I will have a list to all my build guides in the description that you can check out any of my future content if you're looking for your next build in season 6. With that being said, that is going to wrap up my armor stacking hone defenses summoner shield lancer for season 6. Be sure you like and subscribe to the video to keep up to date with all of my Hero Siege related content and news. Come check me out live at twitch.tv/Grax_TV. We're going to be playing I think I got to play Demon Slayer. I think Nemo wanted me to play Demon Slayer. So we're checking that out, or maybe leveling a Stormweaver. With that being said, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video.